Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to SynthWorld, and I'm your host, DJ Nomad, and I am super excited to be here with iconic electronic music producer and vocalist, Hayley, aka Mecha Maiko. Hayley, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I can't believe you used the word iconic. Thank you. And I should probably correct you off the back. Oh, sorry, off the bat. It is pronounced Mecha Maiko,
Oh, perfect. That's
but
listening. Mecha Maiko, thank you.
everyone says it differently.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here. And now I know Mecha Maiko, Toronto-based producer. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Awesome. So I was just speaking with you earlier about how the fact that you're the first female guest I've had on, the first vocalist, and the first Canadian. So
Just
you're
representing.
yes, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a struggle, I feel like, to get some of the other females in the scene in on the show. So it means the world to me, and I can't wait to dive in with you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'll hook you up with some more people after this if you want.
Oh, please do. It would mean the world to me. I want as much diversity and variety on the show as I can get. So uh yes, please.
Hell yeah.
So let's dive in though real quick. So we just mentioned that you're based in Toronto. Is that where you're originally from?
I'm originally from a smaller town, like a sleepy suburban town, 40 minutes outside of Toronto called Oakville, where I grew up having a very nice sheltered life where there was absolutely nothing to do. And the only shows that existed were like hardcore shows at like the YMCA. I didn't like hardcore. So yeah, I feel like I just kind of turned to the internet mostly for finding music that I liked.
That sounds a lot like my upbringing, honestly. I was in a fairly small suburb in Ohio, and oddly enough, I was drawn to maybe not hardcore, but definitely something like the heavy metal at the time. So
Mhm.
that's interesting. That's sort of similar upbringings there. Now, I always like to ask our guests how their like environment growing up maybe shaped their sound. Do you feel like, where you grew up affected at all how how your music sounds now?
Yeah, like I think a product of being online, especially kind of like in the like 2000s bloghouse era, you kind of get subjected to different sorts of recommendations. So I feel like if anything, living in Toronto now affects my sound more than when I was growing up because I'm actually like involved in the music scene now. There's a lot of like really cool like techno and electro artists in Toronto making cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know a lot about Toronto, if I'm being honest, or Canada kind of generally. So I'm excited to hear that there's a pretty good electronic music scene there. Not a huge surprise though, to be honest. So that's awesome.
Yes, I feel like I'm lucky that I did grow up in close proximity to Toronto because it's sort of like one of the biggest kind of like cultural capitals in the city or in the country in terms of like art and things going on constantly. So, if anything, growing up in Oakville just made me want to like get out as soon as possible.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty common thread with a lot of the artists that I talk to, which is this desire to kind of break out of the cultural and musical shell that they grew up in and experience different things and try different styles of music and art and stuff like that. So that's uh that's very nice to hear.
Exactly. Yes.
So I'll have to come visit Toronto at some point. I know I will. So I just want to give people a little a rounder picture about you before we dive fully into the music. So, what if anything, or where and what can someone, find you in Toronto doing when you're not making your, melodic grooves?
Oh, um, if I'm not making melodic grooves,
Or retouching photos. I know that's a
yes, or retouching photos. I mean, that takes up a lot of my time as of late. But if I'm not doing that, I really like cooking. So you'll probably find me like making a curry or something. Or What else? I feel like I have like old lady interests. Like I really like gardening.
Oh, nice. Okay. Knitting, maybe?
Not knitting, but sewing for sure. I suck at knitting. Very bad at it. Much respect to all the knitters out there. And yeah, I don't know. I have a problem where I kind of like pick up too many hobbies. So as of late, you'll most likely find me playing Halo with Eric, my bandmate, in Hyperlink Dreamsync.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. I just played Halo 3 emulator with Noah actually at his place and was blown away at how close it was to bringing me back to like 2007. So,
Wow.
yeah. So that's really cool. Hopefully we can play with you guys at some point. That would be really cool.
Oh my God, you should. Yes.
So, side question real quick. Favorite dish to cook, what is it?
Um, Favorite dish to cook is probably this like paneer makhani, aka butter paneer, I guess.
Nice.
So it's like I was vegetarian for a long time, so I perfected this chickenless butter chicken dish, and it's definitely like a non-traditional, like bastardized, full of so much butter and so much cream, but it's so good. It's my favorite thing to make. And then favorite dessert to make is Swedish cardamom buns. They're like cinnamon buns, but they're kind of like they're smaller and less poofy. And usually you like kind of tie them in a weird knot shape. And I'm describing this with my hands, even though this is an audio medium. But yeah, I tried them went for the first time when I went to Stockholm to play VHS Vision. And like I was addicted. I got them like every single day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. That sounds amazing. After detailing her favorite non music pastimes, we discuss the pivotal role her father played in forming her music taste. Okay, so now let's dive into the music. I don't want to waste any time with that because there's a lot of years to cover here, a lot of things to ask. So I want to start basically right from the beginning with you. Do you recall, were you interested at music from a young age? And is there anybody maybe in particular you can think of that kind of, piqued your interest in music?
Yes. Like I have some pretty early memories of my dad and I like hanging out in the mornings, and he would go through his like record collection, and I would just like go through and find something with like an interesting cover and be like, "What's this?" And then he would put it on, or he would like try to show me different records. And then so I kind of credit my dad for like really fostering an interest in music. And eventually like when the age of like burning CDs was upon us, I would like ask for him to put a couple songs on a CD, but then he would like fill it out with other songs that he wanted to like, I guess, subject me to, like kind of like a sampling, like a sample platter of music.
He was a little subtle, subliminal in that way. He was just kind of
Yeah, yeah. And I remember like hearing some like Heaven 17 and like Bananarama and like all these sort of like 80s synth heavy tracks. And I was like, wait, what's this? Or like, what's a drum machine? Why would you need a drum machine?
That's awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. Appreciate.
Thank you, Rod.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Wow. Okay, so Dad got you there. Do you now? Let me ask you, with maybe like you mentioned that a lot of his music was kind of already pushing you towards kind of analog synthesizers, if you will, at minimum. Maybe some synth pop feels, if you will. Can you remember like maybe the first time you really like deeply connected with something with that kind of music? And then do you think you could draw, maybe a direct line from there to, where you are now?
Yeah. So, I mean, to his credit, he showed me a lot of stuff. It just happened to be the sort of like synth pop new wave stuff that I really liked. Um, but I remember, I think he had like the Utah Saints first album on CD and would like play that in the car. And I think that was one that I was really excited by. And I I think I had it. I think he burned like an MP3 disc for me that had like a bunch of different albums, kind of all within the same vein. But I remember like laying in bed with headphones, listening to these songs and like trying to pick out every layer that like came in and like when it came out and just being like enamored with like the mix. If you have things on headphones, like hearing stuff in the left ear versus the right ear, really hyper fixating on it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you're twisting and turning and move new directions, which is really exciting. And so we'll touch on some of that and maybe some of your influences in that and those styles and subgenres. But I want to ask you just kind of a general question. How long have you been producing music?
I think I probably started like farting around with GarageBand when I was like 12 or 13. I remember being really obsessed with mashups at the time. And like all I wanted to do was like try to make mashups. And I was so bad at it. I was like trying to like download acapellas and then make them work with other songs. And then I started to try to like produce my own beats underneath. It was bad. Uh, and so, but it like helped teach me the program and like was just messing around with loops and then started to put my music like on SoundCloud when I was in high school. And by that point, I had like started getting into just like writing MIDI and like clicking and dragging the notes. So it was like just a hobby. But I guess even before that, I was just like with a keyboard and like writing songs in a little notebook.
Now, do you use GarageBand still? I'm guessing you use a different DAW.
I basically use Garage. I use Logic, which is just
Okay.
grown
Yeah.
up GarageBand. I use Ableton for live performance, but like it's kind of difficult for me to wrap my head around producing in it, but I know it's powerful. I should learn.
Just super complicated. But I mean, to be honest with you, like I've had at least two or three guys on or producers on who use Fruity Loops, which I know is another DAW that a lot
Mhm.
of kind of look down upon, if you will, certainly Ableton users. But like if you listen to their music, you would have, you know what I mean? You would have no idea that there's any that they're using a less, a DAW that's considered lesser than or whatever. So whatever works.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You can't tell by your music, I can promise you that.
Well, yeah, it's kind of asking like what kind of room do you work in? It's like, well, the room doesn't super matter. It's like kind of
Right.
what you're able to do within it. And like
Yep.
some rooms have like these weird skinny hallways that are really awkward and you don't want to go down.
That's an interesting analogy. I'm have to steal that one.
I think it needs some workshopping, but
Well, now speaking of moving through her music catalog, we touch on her time in the group Dead Astronauts, as well as her decision to break out as a solo artist under the moniker Mecha Maiko. I kind of want to take a half step back, if you will, to some of your previous music ventures. I don't want to spend a crazy amount of time on it, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the group you were a part of, Dead Astronauts. So I just want to ask, what part of your musical journey would you say that kind of represents for you? And then, when you did decide to kind of go off on your own, why would you say you kind of felt like you were ready for that step?
hmm. I think that like joining Dead Astronauts kind of represented a point where I like really committed to working on music in like a serious way that wasn't me just like writing a song and then putting it out the next week and like actually having to work with somebody else and it was also like when I really like got into synthwave and I that's all I wanted to make. Like
Mhm.
Jared had song ideas that were a lot more kind of like The Knife or like all of his references were were genres and artists that I really loved, but I was like, I'm so sorry, man. Like I need to be making retro 80s sounding stuff. Like I have to. It's too good.
That's where your heart was at the time. I understand it.
Yeah, I was obsessed. I guess I just had like I'd been drinking in too much that it was impossible for it to not come out. I'm proud of what we made together. And like looking back, I kind of wish like I can still tell my production is like super stripped back, super simple. And at the time it was very different than what I'd been making before, but I kind of miss like having that beginner's mind when it comes to production.
Do you remember when you were ready to kind of step off onto your own? And how did Mecha Maiko kind of start? Did that happen before you left at Astronauts, or did you form that afterwards, that moniker?
Mecha Maiko actually started from a pile of like songs that I'd been working on that I wanted to pitch for Dead Astronauts, but they were like too cheerful or just like not the right vibe. And I was like, crap, I really want to release this though. So I kind of like shoved them in a folder for like solo things. And I was working on them kind of in tandem when we were wrapping up Arms of Night. Yeah, again, it was like a time in my life where my attention was split between so many different things that I just had to kind of toss all my chips into the Mecha Maiko and retouching hat and like let everything else drop off.
What a journey. Jeez.
Yeah.
Surprised though, because it sounds like you had been making music for quite a while, and I feel like a lot of artists, at least the ones I've talked to, have side kind of projects and stuff that they're working on that are always kind of in their vault. So that's awesome.
Yes. Many, many songs in the graveyard.
Graveyard, you call it. Okay.
Well, they're abandoned. They're maybe not dead.
Well, there's are they zombies then if they come back to life? Is that technically
Yes. Yes.
zombie songs? Oh man, that's great. Well, yeah, it sounds like your vault is quite full at the moment as well. And we're gonna dive into that. I'm teasing it as much as I can. So I wanted to ask you, how did it feel when you've got that 2022 Juno Award nomination for Electronic Album of the Year? And how is that? Do you feel like that's changed your kind of music career in the last couple of years?
That's an interesting question. And first of all, thank you very much. Yeah, it's weird. I feel like it was a total anomaly and fluke, really. I think I kind of got lucky just probably with the judges that were on the selection board that year. The chairperson of the award at the time was really trying to get people with more diverse tastes in there. So it was a great year to be making kind of weird music. In terms of how it's changed my music career, it's interesting because if anything, I feel like it somehow legitimized it. I know I've been doing it for a long time, but it never really felt like I was a real artist because I never really started playing shows until quite late in the game. And um, I felt like I still had so much to learn. And because I was self taught, I really didn't feel like I was that good or good enough. So to kind of have your name like put on like on TV and stuff, like it's really, really weird. And so, and I can't really say that it's led to a lot of major like professional or career based changes for me, but it's definitely changed my mindset in terms of thinking that maybe it is worth, investing in myself as an artist a little bit more than I have been and not just treating it as like this cool secret persona I have that like a lot of, my clients in the retouching world like don't know about.
Yeah, I know. I understand. There is a part of like the undergroundness of this area of mu electronic music that is kind of cool and fun. But to see it legitimized, I'm sure was quite a treat.
I mean, I know that right now it's entirely a labor of love for people to put on events like Electronicon or Neon or Outland or Hotline Bristol. Like, there's a lot of people who are just making these kind of like synthwave events happen out of a labor of love. So It is going to be a little bit bureaucratic, and it's also going to be a lot of like DIY mentality too.
So I do want to pivot for just a second and ask you a kind of vocalist related question since you are the first vocalist on the show. I have to ask you something about that. And I'm just honestly curious, you've been doing this for a while. What's your overall good and bad? What's your overall kind of feeling or experience of being a vocalist in this style of music?
It's interesting because I find that usually when early on, when people wanted to work with me, it was like always just for my voice. Like people could not give two that I produced. And honestly, like back then, I probably wouldn't either. Like it was nothing to write home about. But it was interesting because like I never thought I was that good of a singer. I just like writing songs. And my early stuff was like auto-tuned to no end. And then eventually I dated a very sweet boy in high school who convinced me to stop doing that. Shout out to Miguel. And so it was weird. Like it started off with just a billion SoundCloud collaborations. And I was like so flattered that I would say yes to everything. And then after having my voice on some very embarrassingly bad songs, I like got more picky about what I would say yes to. But overall, I don't really have a lot of complaints. Like I feel like most artists are very comfortable with letting me write what I want or letting me throw things at the wall and see what fits. Working with somebody like Eric or Neil, they really just trust me to do what feels best in a song and rarely offer notes, which is the most spoiled princess experience ever. I have worked with people who it seems like pulling teeth getting, I guess, what they want out of me for the song.
Sure.
But I'm pretty lucky that a lot of the songs that have made it out have just been like these total easy, everything is flowing, everything is working kind of collaborations.
Not a big surprise there. I think most of the people, I think electronic music kind of generally, I think you probably have seen this. People in electronic music are pretty apt to and open to collaboration and letting people kind of do their thing, maybe more so than other genres, I feel like. So not a surprise there at all. But your experience for quite a while now, you've released lots of music, not just as Mecha Maiko, but elsewhere. So I want to ask you for any, you know, aspiring vocalists trying to get into this area of music. What's your, how do you kind of address writing lyrics and maybe give a good, quick kind of a piece of advice on writing lyrics for someone who's new,
Oh my God.
struggling with it?
So this is the area of songwriting that I'm the most like self-conscious about because a lot of my music for a long time has been kind of like I didn't keep a journal for a long time, but I would write music and then that's kind of where all my all my feelings would come out.
Mhm.
So I have songs where it's very much drawing on like my own personal life. And then there's whatever their batch that are based in like pure, like rooted in inspiration from walking through the world and like catching onto a thread and slight like poetries in that moment. I'm like, oh, maybe I should like write a little thing about this and like extend it out. And I think too, like some of my favorite songs that I've written were actually when I was in college and like taking a creative writing course. So if you're ever really stuck, I think it's great to kind of like look at some of those creative writing exercises where you just get a prompt to either like completely copy somebody else's style. Like obviously don't use that as your final piece, but it just helps to like get you thinking about how that what somebody else's approach is and what they're doing with it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a good person to ask.
I think that's a great answer, honestly. It's part of the reason why I kept some of the textbooks from college just to like help me refresh my memory on learning some of that material. So
Yeah, like honestly, like just read a little bit. That's such a good way of getting inspiration.
yeah, definitely read a little bit, learn about something. So it sounds like you have kind of like you got a couple different tools to kind of help you get where you want to go with your lyrics. And do you ever do like concept albums or concept lyrics or anything like that, where you have, you're drawing creating a story, if you will, in the lyrics? I mean, I feel like you do, but I just want to hear if you approach it like that.
Yeah. So the second release I ever put out as Mecha Maiko was called Okia, and that was more of a concept album. And I didn't have a lot of lyrics in that record, but like the song Bug is probably has the most. But yeah, that was like a full on, it was the first time, I guess the last time I ever did like a real concept album where it was like purely fiction about like an actual Mecha Maiko, like an Android Maiko. Yeah, everything since has been, I guess like there are threads that tie certain albums together. Like Not Okay has a bit more of like an I guess Let's and Not Okay have a bit more of like an activist spirit behind them. I think that maybe one of the taglines I had in mind was like music for dance music for people who want to tell the apocalypse to off.
I like that.
And then I guess like the first Mecha Maiko album was SynthPop to quit your job to, because that's exactly what I did at the time. I don't know, it's just a lot of angst.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and it actually is a question I was going to ask you later, but I might as well ask you now. It felt like some of your, at least your main releases, have that angst, that internal, external conflict going on. And so I'm wondering, what parts of Hayley does Mecha Maiko kind of allow you to express?
It allows me to express maybe the parts of myself that I try to push down in order to get through the day. Um, and yeah, like I get to be angry, I get to vent, even even if it feels like flawed or naive. Um, it's just like a nice way to kind of like process feelings and help move them through you and do something a little bit cathartic with it. So it's probably been really helpful, like overall, just for my mental health, like to not to like have something else to do with these things. Um, but it's interesting too because I feel like a lot of my music now is split equally between like angst and joy and pleasure. And so I feel like now I'm like connecting a little bit more with this other part of me that I'm like, maybe I spent too much time being angry and I need to do something else.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. I mean, I know that feeling though. It's like the music and the other art forms in general kind of allow for expression of feelings and thoughts that you either don't you struggle to feel comfortable expressing elsewhere. Um or like you mentioned, even repressed sometimes. So I'm just glad you've come out on the other side of that.
Yeah. And the fact is too, like we feel old because we're like, ah, yes, our 20s, but like, I mean, we still got a lot of life ahead of us and like so much more to learn. And once you realize life happens to everyone, like it almost makes it easier to reconnect with joy because it's so precious.
Great. I'm just happy to hear another person who's in my age group who is not feeling apathetic as a result of the frustrations and difficulties, and instead is inspired to keep moving forward because our time is coming to kind of take the reins of control of the world, and kind of guide the ship soon at least. And I hope we're ready for it, and we're in a good spirit when the time comes because I'm excited for the future. As scary as it may be, I still
Yeah,
believe we are capable of so many great things ahead of us. So uh,
absolutely.
I do want to touch back on, I don't want to skip the chance to touch on some of your inspirations, even if it's just a few of them, because I feel like, and this ties a little bit to maybe your changes in your music, that while there's certainly a thread of like 80s synthwave and 80s synth pop vocals in your music, it feels like you've been kind of migrating almost more towards like the late 80s and early 90s electro pop stuff. which I love. And I we play on some of our show. So is that accurate? Am I right about that? And then can you throw out maybe just a couple influences that really got you there?
I think right now, like early in my career, I was really narrowing my well of influences, and now like kind of to tie in with what we were talking about before about like accepting all parts of yourself, I'm trying to accept more of my wide range of like musical influences, so I'm not just like only 80s sounds or like only 90s. I guess in terms of like vocal inspiration, not that I can do it at all, but like Elizabeth Fraser and Cocteau Twins is like peak vocalist inspiration for me. She's incredible. Even a lot of like the kind of the cadence of a lot of the vocals and like later New Order stuff. Yeah, and but it's also interesting because like growing up in the time period in which we did, there was a lot of like R&B and like pop vocalists, like Destiny's Child and like Brandy and Ashanti and Mariah Carey and like
Sure, sure, yeah.
um
Did Cher play any role in that? I don't
did
know.
who?
Sure.
Oh, you know what? No, but her production did.
Yeah, yeah. I get yeah, that's cool though. Okay, so you get pretty a pretty wide. Moving into the present, we discuss her preference for VSTs over analog synthesizers and some of her favorite desert island picks.
I prefer VSTs because I'm a bedroom producer and I currently live in a bachelor apartment. So I don't have room to have analog synthesizers. Um, and I love, just as like a dirty little socialist, the kind of fact that it's something everybody can kind of use. Like
Yeah.
cost and space doesn't matter. So the price is right usually because I use mostly free VSTs.
What's your
Like
favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I probably use the like Tyrell number 9
Oh yeah.
on like every single track. Like I love making a stupid 90s bass line in there.
Sure, sure.
Um yeah, I love that. And the Tell You Know LX is great. I'm pretty sure that's just like the Juno ripoff.
That's awesome though. Okay, cool. So VSTs, a lot of times people can't tell, honestly, that's a VST. Most of the time you can. So love that. Okay, next one. I want to know Desert Island Mecha Maiko songs. Maybe two or three.
I probably would take the title track Hyperlink Dream Sync by Hyperlink Dream Sync with me.
Yep. Yep, great song.
And then, I mean, I probably would need something to get my heart pumping. I don't know. I know I mentioned like Show Me Love. I think I would need that just for the nostalgia. And I can't get sick of it. Like I just can't.
Yeah, it's a great track. Yeah, for sure. Love that.
Now that I think of it, like if I could choose a whole album, I know it's not heart pumping, but like Chill Out by the KLF, I'd probably take with me because I can listen to that anytime as well.
Speaking of maybe favorite tracks, you might have some new ones here soon. I know you're working on some new material, so I want to know, and you're kind of I don't want to say pivoting, but you are moving in maybe a slightly different direction. So, what do you have any kind of like grand plans for Mecha Maiko going forward?
I guess I've always kind of been free form with my music, but a little even more so now. I've been working on a lot of like electro and electro clash songs. Some people may be shocked and appalled and excited and morbidly curious to hear that I've recorded a rap song.
Oh, okay. That is a surprise, absolutely. The other thing I want to ask you about that I know is kind of in tandem with kind of the next chapter for your music is the group that you joined, which is Hyperlink Dream Sequence. Am I saying that right?
Oh, Hyperlink Dream Sync. Yeah.
Sync. Ah, gosh, I love the name though. HDS. I like that that's its acronym. How did that, first of all, how did that kind of form? If you can touch on that real quick, and then how does that kind of factor into future plans?
Okay. So it basically started before I got involved with um Neil, so it's Phono Ghosts, and Eric Sparrow. They did like a collab album together and then wanted to do another one and then just decided to create a new project name entirely for it. And Eric reached out to me about doing vocals. And I think he messaged me at a time when I was like super busy. And so I was like, LOL, sorry, no. And he almost never messaged me again. And then he like poked me again right before their like kind of right after their album came out. And I listened to it for the first time and I was blown away. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I want to work with you guys. What the hell? This is so good. And so I did vocals on Carrington Institute, which then got reworked into our single Unseen. And after that, they asked if I wanted to kind of join the band and as their vocalist. And I was like, absolutely. Um, so we've been working for like, oh my God, I guess 2 years now on tracks together. Like we have an insane amount of songs. So we have an album in the pipeline, which will most likely be released in 2025. We have a couple labels interested. Hopefully they stay interested.
Oh, good to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah. So yeah, right now we're just kind of wrapping up our core selects for the album and yeah, very excited for it to see the light of day.
Yeah, me too. No kidding. Especially because all the stuff that you've released up until now has been really awesome. So anybody who's listening, definitely check that out. Um, so that leads me to my last question. We've gone so far here. I still have so many questions I know I could ask, but when can we expect more Mecha Maiko releases? I'm guessing probably next year, maybe something at the end of this year. I don't know, but it sounds like there's stuff in the future. What can our listeners expect?
I think 2025 is going to be a pretty like action-packed year. And Eric and I were talking about actually trying to do some live shows as HDS because Toronto and Akron aren't too far apart. Like I visited him last month. And if we can rope Neil into playing some shows with us, like in the UK, that would be great. But yeah,
That's awesome. Okay, so lots of new music coming. I was going to ask about shows, but there you go. You have it. Sounds like HGS might be playing some shows in the future. Hopefully, some Mecha Maiko as well. And hopefully, we can get you down to Florida. That would be really cool. Seeing you there,
yes,
like, in front of some palm trees or on a beach or something like that. That'd be pretty retro.
that would be so good. So
Yeah.
good.
I just want to thank you again so much for being here. Again, that's Mecha Maiko, singer, producer of electronic music, and 1/3 of Hyperlink Dreams Sync, right?
Yes.
There we go. Got it. Last words here for our listeners. What do you have for them?
My God, last words. If there's anything I've learned through making music, it's honestly to, you know, obviously try to do your best. Spend maybe more, like live with your songs for a bit before releasing, but it does no good to keep a dragon's hoard of unreleased material. Just try to be a little bit less precious. Understand that you will make mistakes. People will hear those mistakes and call you out for them, and other people will love you for them. So just do it.
Just let it go. And I have to unfortunately let you go right now, but it was great chatting again. And everybody check out Mecha Maiko. Thank you so much, Haley. Take care.
Thank you, Damon.
Bye.